Because at the end of the day, it's no amount of negotiation skill is going to help you if your portfolio sucks, right? Or if you don't know how to deliver. What's up, Fungi? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Super happy to be here.
Wow, so this is the first episode. Originally, I was going to call this show Designers Eating Lunch Together. And I was going to fly over and you would take me to your favorite place to eat. And then we would just have like a cool conversation. So, but
I
unfortunately, Noah
mean,
told me we don't have the budget for that. So here we are on Zoom. But
yeah.
if I would come to visit you in Harare in Zimbabwe, where would we go eat?
Oh, okay. So there's this really cool place called Gava's, and they serve like all Zimbabwean cuisine. So you'll definitely have a good time there for sure.
Nice, nice.
And
That would be
you would have to eat with your hands too. So I'm not sure if you're okay with that, but that's how we do it over here.
yeah. That's how we do it in Israel as well. So we eat with our
Oh,
hands.
yay. Okay. I love that.
Yeah, nice. So, but wait, now you're in South Africa, right?
I am. I'm currently in South Africa for a few months working on a personal passion project.
So why in South Africa?
It just makes more sense from a logistics point of view, considering the things that I want to be able to do. So I'm closer to specific printers, the research that I need in order to make sure that I get things done as well.
So
So I
actually,
just
maybe tell me about the project. Tell me about the project.
so the project is quite experimental, I would say, but I decided that I needed to take a bold leap of faith, and I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't do this. So I'm turning one of my digital research projects into a coffee table book that I hope will be super cool if someone wants to put it on their actual coffee table, or if they just want to learn more about what's inside the book, or hopefully it'll also contribute towards documentation when it comes to African design systems, because we don't have many books and enough literature that talks about that. So yeah, super experimental, so
That's
scary,
super
but
cool.
I'm doing it.
But so you said this came out from a research project for other project that you were working on?
Yeah, so I worked on a textile project or research project about 2 years ago in 2021, which was super cool because I didn't really think that it would get the traction that it did in terms of with regards to people just generally being interested in the topic of conversation. And I ended up doing typographics because of it. So I was like, hey, I really enjoyed the process of coming up with the visuals that go alongside the actual research. So I think it would be cool to actually have a textile themed book that's very aesthetic, but also carries like, the right information. So that's what I'm currently trying to do right now.
So you're doing both the research and the design and the like everything. You're producing it with like what with the intention
Yeah.
of selling it, finding a publisher. Like what's the end game?
For now, I would say with the intention of proof of concept. And then after that, when I'm actually holding a physical book, I'm gonna come knocking at people's doors and be like, can I have your money? So that we can make this thing a little bit bigger. But I do hope that at some point, and this is like my big, 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 big vision for it, I hope that there's room for it to maybe be in school curriculums, maybe to be in a few libraries. And again, if anyone just wants to purchase it just for the sake of having something pretty and aesthetic that they can look at and in their home, then they can also do that.
The topic
But that's
is African textiles. Is that did I get that right?
so it's actually called Threads. It's called Threads, and then it's a whole long title, like exploring the writing and graphic systems that are embedded in African textiles. That's what it's about.
I love side project. I think I don't know what it was for you, but for me, side projects were always a huge leap forward where I started just doing things for fun. I didn't necessarily know if it's going to turn out into whatever money or client work or whatever, but I just felt like, I want to do this. I want to develop an app. I want to make a movie or something. And it always
Yeah.
moved my career forward in ways that I could not anticipate. So I love that you're doing that. That's also kind of like how you got into actually the niche that you're working in right now, right? Can you share a
Yeah.
little bit about how you stumble on that?
Stumbled is very like appropriate actually. So I come from a science background. I have no formal education in design whatsoever. Um, I didn't even take up anything designy in school. So it's actually quite strange that someone would be like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. But it's rather interesting in the sense that when I graduated from university, which is like in 2014, I was very frustrated. I was trying to find a job in my field of study. I applied to several corners of the world and I couldn't find anything. It just so happens that I am on YouTube the one day and my top recommended video is actually a Photoshop tutorial, which was so odd because I had not even opened anything to do with design. So the algorithm was being very weird on that day. So I clicked into it, and then my mind was completely blown because I was like, what? You're telling me that people do this with your computers? Like, that's a thing? I had no idea. And I was drawn to it because as I was growing up naturally, like I was a very creative child. So I sort of did everything with my hands. And when it came to special occasions, I would hand make cards for my family members. So I think that I was particularly drawn to this because it felt like an extension of what I could do with my hands. So I started self-learning whilst I was still job hunting. And immediately the design bug just bit me. I got so into it. I was like, oh, like, what am I learning today? Like, let me look up other tutors or tutorials on YouTube. What can I learn? And that sort of thing. So eventually, when I did get my formal job, I would go to like my 10 to 4. And then I would come back and like burn the midnight oil, like trying to learn everything and just like absorb as much as I could. Up until then, I started volunteering myself. Within like my family circle. If someone was having something, it could be like the most random thing. It could be like, oh, there's like a puppy's birthday, whatever it is. I'm like, let me make something because that's just how like excited I was just to get my hands on that kind of work. So yeah, that's fast forward, eventually left my job or got dismissed from my job in pandemic year, which was another set of emotions and everything altogether. But I think it sort of pushed me and really into the deep end to be like, hey, I think that you've got to take this thing full time and see what you can do with it. And now here I am.
Awesome. I think this story sounds like so many of our students. Actually, I think in Flux Academy, like so many people do not come from like a proper. So I went to like 4 years of design school, blah, blah, blah. But most of the people that we end up, coaching or mentoring are people who are in a similar position. I think they're doing, I don't know if career transition or they're just like, this job is boring. And I see on YouTube, people are doing fun stuff and getting paid for it. So I think this is really
Mhm.
common. Also, I think this is part of why I started the YouTube channel, just like show people that this is a cool vocation and yeah, I guess inspire
Mhm.
people to do that. So what's
Yeah.
the design? Is there like a design community, design scene in Zimbabwe that you're a part of, or it's just like everybody like I'm learning on the internet and that's it?
So my learning experience has been quite isolated. There are a few designers that I know who are Zimbabwean and in Zimbabwe, but when it comes to actual communities, there is one, but I think we need to do more. Um,
So there's no
but
like hangouts or meetups or stuff like that where you just meet
so
and
not
chat
design
or
ones per se, but creative hangouts. Those are on the rise. So just a mesh pot of different kinds of creatives, photographers, fashion designers, cinematographers, guys who do fine art and that sort of thing. So a lot of those kinds of hangouts, we all kind of meet in one space. But when it comes to like brand design or like
yeah.
web design or like a
When you
website
want to rant about
community,
fonts, who do you complain?
I complain on Instagram and Twitter.
On Instagram, got it, got it. Okay, so it's like
Yeah, and Twitter.
the
That's
online
where I
community.
complain.
Got it.
Yes, yes, that's
Because
exactly where I
I think
send
it's
all of those
important.
thoughts.
I think it's so important. I mean, I somehow it turned out that so many of my friends are designer friends just because I guess we share the same struggles or interests or passions. Um, and it's yeah, it's interesting to hear how other people in different locations, yeah, have different communities or uh, yeah. So here's something that I'm curious about. So you're basically self-taught, which is amazing, but something that I've found difficult with people who are self-taught, I guess learning software and stuff like that, and even a process is, I guess, pretty much straightforward, right? You can see a tutorial, you can take a course. But there's something that I've seen over and over again in Flux Academy with students that they struggle with, which is learning to develop good taste. And I think, I'm looking at your designs and website. It's like it's beautiful. It's just like in
Thank
good
you.
taste. I don't know how to say it besides using good taste. And so I want to ask for like, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like, oh, I'm just born that way? I get an eye for design or whatever, or is this something that you feel is developing? Is there a way to develop that? How do you feel about that?
Definitely not born with it. And I feel like even if you have innate creativity, you still have to work at it. I think that design is a learned skill. So, like you've been saying, we get all kinds of students from all walks of life, in Flux, and they don't have design backgrounds, but they become great designers after taking our courses. So everything is learned as long as you apply yourself, you're consistent, you have a lot of organic practice, then you're definitely going to get better. And I feel like that was my journey as well. When I started out, my work looked very chaotic, to say the least. And also because I was absorbing a lot of like learning material from various sources. So I sort of mimicked what they were doing, and then I tried to make my own, and then it didn't quite look like what theirs looked like and everything like that. So it was also very experimental, but it really genuinely was pure chaos. So with a few more years in me and a lot more practice where I just intentionally apply myself, I've gotten to a place where I feel more comfortable, more comfortable in my style. I feel more confident in the kinds of stories that I want to tell and how I tell those stories. So it's definitely been a bit of a journey getting here, but the beginning or the formative years of it were like just madness, to say the least.
So I think I heard you in another conversation saying that you basically had a portfolio, but then that was kind of like maybe general in terms of style, and then you kind of dove into the African style and decided, okay, I want to focus on that. So I'm cleaning up, removing everything and starting from scratch.
Yes, so that's pretty much what I did. I deleted I all of my tweets. I took down all of my Instagram posts. I was like, I need to reform myself. And I think what is actually also quite special about like the learning journey in design is that we start off from a place where we're not really sure what it is that we want to put out into the world. Like you're not really sure like what kind of message or what kind of work you want people to interact with. But the more you like stay curious and the more you experiment, you start to realize the things that you like and the things that you don't like as much. So through that chaos that I was speaking of, it sort of dawned on me like I had also been reading some material that really inspired me. And I woke up, I was like, wait, how come
What
we
was
don't
that?
see much
What
of
did
this?
you read? What did you read?
So I was reading this book called African Alphabet. It's by this guy called Prof. Sakima Fungi. He's a well-known like Zimbabwean graphic designer. He went to Yale and then he started the first graphic design school in Harare. So I encountered his material and it's so weird because it had not dawned on me that I could actually use my design voice in an African expression up until that point. So I was like, wait, I think there's something here. And then I started doing my research and I noticed that there was a gap, right? So when it comes to sort of culturally inclined expressions in African design, it's not something that we see often online. So we'll see it in like photography, we'll see it in film and music, and it's stunning and it's beautiful. But in the digital space, when it comes to branding, when it comes to web, they're far and few in between. So that's sort of what drove me to make the decision that it's something that I wanted to do. And also, I quickly realized that as much as I would see myself in those kinds of stories, others would also see themselves or others who look like me as well. So, complete overhaul, completely took everything down. I'm like, I'm starting afresh. And that was a whole interesting journey altogether because the first time that I actually put up a post that was aligned to that, I was scared. I was like shaking and I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen with this. And I posted on LinkedIn. That was the first time I did it. And it was a fictional coffee branding project called Afro Roasters that I did. And I went to bed. I woke up the following morning and I was like, wait, why is my phone blowing up? Because as far as I know, there are like 5 people that I talked to, and none of them have messaged me yet. Um, so I looked into my phone and then I went into my notifications. I onto my LinkedIn and I ugly cried on that day because I did not think that there was going to be that kind of response to the work that I put up. So it was like super cool, like, oh my gosh, like we haven't seen this and this is really exciting and fresh. And oh, like, how did you do this? Like, like leads in my DM, other designers in my DM wanting to learn from me. And I was like, wait, I don't even know what to tell you because I'm just kind of starting this thing and I don't know anything. So maybe we can exchange ideas. But yeah, that's sort of like what led me to really like focus and like hone in on this thing that I'm doing now and like get excited every day to just wake up and create in this way.
Oh my God, I've got so many questions. So the first one is first, it sounds super risky. I mean, you are, I guess, trying to build yourself as a designer, build a career, potentially, the magic grail or the holy grail of everybody starting in design. I want to work with international clients, especially if I'm not from like a, rich country. So going in a direction of saying, hey, I'm not going to do what is either trendy or works right now in design. I'm going to do something super local and culturally specific. Didn't you feel like it might be like risky? Hey, maybe I'm going to drive away all of these great clients and like, I don't know. Wasn't that scary?
It was, but I had nothing to lose at this point, man,
Yeah.
because
That's the
like I
best at
said, I
starting
had
out. That's the best at starting out.
yeah, I had been let go from my job. So I was like, you know what? I'm going in guns blazing. I have no idea what's going to happen with this, but the best thing that I can do is just try and see whether it lands or not. So I had nothing to lose.
It sounds like when you're speaking, you're saying like, I have my stories that I want to share. It sounds like you're coming to design from a very, again, like you have a message that you want to share. It's like very idealistic. And I feel like it sounds like a lot of my teachers that I had in design school who are like, being a designer is the most important thing in the world because you shape culture and you have a message and stuff like that. And most people who are practitioners are actually like, dude, we design stuff to sell stuff and, we make websites so people, whatever, they're usable and people understand. What are you talking about? Message and culture and all of that. Like I have a client, the client gives me a brief, I solve it, move on. So how do you balance these two approaches?
I guess now I'm in a position where I can sort of choose the kind of work that I want to take on, which I'm really grateful for. So I really have to make that choice to be like, oh, like, do I elevate like what the client wants or do I elevate the story? Because it just so happens that the client and the story come together and it's a really lovely package. But I think as I was sort of working towards this, you kind of have to assess and see, like, do I want to eat today or do I not want to eat today? Um,
Yeah.
and answer is yes, I do want to eat today. So I think I'm just gonna have to make sure that I get this done so that I have something of my own. But I think even within that, just being very intentional about making sure that the way that I handled clients as well also was something that represented my best interest. So it may not necessarily have been work that's culturally inclined, but just to be like, hey, this is what we're working on. So this is my process. Like these are, like the specific documents that we need to go through before we start this project. So these are my working terms, da 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 da, list all of those down and we agree on it because even though it's work that is going to feed me and work that may not necessarily inspire me but just pays me, I wanted to make sure that I also preserve my peace of mind. So I just made sure that I had all the contingencies and the right things in place to ensure that I still had a good outcome regardless. So Yeah, like I said, since maybe about a year, 2 years now, like things have changed very significantly in the sense that I have the freedom and the privilege of choice. So I'm really, really grateful for that.
So let's talk about your process. And somebody mentioned in the comments that you've somehow tied in maybe your background in, scientific background with methodology and all of that. So what does that look like?
So my process may be a little bit unconventional, and this is why I speak of trying to get this personal passion project out because there isn't much for us to actually work on when it comes to the inspiration that I need. So for elevating African narratives, you can go and Google and things will come up. So some of them may be factual, some may not be, but you also really don't know up until you dig it a little bit deeper. So I have to go outside. Like I have conversations with random strangers on the side of the road. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. What are you making? How do you make it? Where do you come from? Because this is also how I pick up and learn things, especially when I travel. I tend to do this a lot. I also take time out to frequent like art exhibitions and craft spaces because you get some of the original artisans there. So guys who have 40 years experience in basket weaving. You wouldn't be able to find that person online.
So you're
And
mentioning
more
this
so,
as part of your design process? Because
yes,
part of,
because this
so
is my
what you mean is, so you mean
thing.
my first part is to gather inspiration and do research. And I do that by going to exhibition and talking to people and learning before I even get sit down to design.
Yes.
That's
So
interesting.
that's a whole big chunk of it. So only after then, like when I've, like engaged with a few visuals and that sort of thing. Also, it depends on the client brief and what I need to learn in order to make sure that I tell the right story. Then I go into compiling everything that I've come up with, maybe sort of put that into a few visuals so that we can determine the direction and then from there I go into development. So this can look very different depending on the scope of the project. So maybe you were looking at the brand identity. So that's, the suite colors, etc. Maybe you're also going to take that into packaging. Maybe you're going to take it to web as well. But I would say that 80% of the process is just me trying to find the right references, trying to get the right information, trying to get the right visuals. And then the harder part actually becomes translating those visuals into something that may look maybe ancient and traditional and archaic, however you want to put it, into something that's fresh and modern and still holds the story. That's where the harder work is. But yeah, that is my process.
Cool.
That is it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think most people tend to focus on the actual design, meaning I sit on the software and I create the shapes and stuff like that. Some people would talk about strategy and gathering the references, but I don't think a lot of people would pay as much attention about, hey, where do I even collect my references? And do I go outside of the like normal inspirational websites to see something that maybe other people don't see? Um, so I think that's super, super interesting. So you've been speaking a lot about, African narrative, and how does that tie in with international clients? Does it not limit you to working only with African clients, or like how do you think about that?
No, actually, it's been rather interesting because I think when I sort of decided that I was going to like narrow in or like zero in on this, I did think about that. But what has been super exciting about this entire journey is that my clients come from all corners of the world. So I've had clients who are planning symposiums here in Africa that I've worked with. I have clients in the African diaspora who are also trying to get their message out there in a very fresh and digestible way. I have clients who are working on material that pertains to the continent and they're based in different countries. I have collaborated with a type foundry. Christoph, he's great. He's German. And he came up with a typeface called Pangea, which supports all Latin based African languages. So I created the supporting visuals for that to promote the typeface. So it's all kinds of different
Mm.
collaborations that can come out of it that are not limited to just Africans on the African continent, because there's a
Yeah,
lot
got it.
more going on up there. Yeah.
So the African story is very international, is basically what you're saying.
It
Yeah.
is apparently for the wave right now, and everyone just wants a piece of us.
Love it. Love it. Okay. What is your take on what's going on with AI right now? Everybody's kind of like either hyped
Oh,
or worried or thinking about this, concerned about this.
yeah, you like, is AI coming for our jobs?
No,
Yeah,
either that
I
or it's just like, oh, cool. I can. Did you did you see the cover I did for the podcast with Mid Journey?
I did, I did,
Give me some
and it
design
looks so.
feedback. Doesn't
That
look
was
like
really
you.
funny. Oh gosh, I love how the comment was like, "Who is that?" But no, it's okay. So I have two minds when it comes to AI. I think, and they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. So the first being that I think it's great in the sense that it makes things much easier. So you save a lot of time, sometimes, like with research, even with process, even with general administration, where you don't have to think too hard, or think of the next thing to write or do and that sort of thing, because you just get solutions at the go. And especially with them integrating it into software that we use every day, it just makes it that much easier to just,
Did you already
get.
play around with the Photoshop generative fill?
I have, and I've
Oh
seen the
my
things
God, it's so
that
crazy.
people are playing with it. It's absolute madness. It's
Yes, I've played
so
around with it.
crazy. Yeah, so I was just like, oh, okay. I see how this could be very beneficial for a lot of things. Because even
Oh,
like generating your own mockups and stuff like would be like so quick, just like that. But
yeah.
my other school of thought on my mind is that I feel like it's dehumanizing things. It's kind of scary. Because
Yeah.
you're like, what, to what extent is this AI thing gonna go? And especially when it comes to like artwork, for instance, because I value artists who have taken 15 years, perfecting their brush strokes. Right. That kind of work is just really beautiful. And even when you purchase it, you feel like, oh my goodness, like I am actually purchasing a piece of art. But with what is happening in the world of AI and people like just quickly generating like images and digital illustrations and that sort of thing, I'm just kind of like, oh, what happens to the real artists? Like we
I don't
need
think,
them.
yeah, that's not my concern. I mean, I'm not, it's just like you would think that when Photoshop and Illustrator, whatever, started in the 80s, 90s, and personal computer, people would stop drawing because, hey, now they have all of these graphic tools. Well, if, of course, it's not the case. I mean, I think people who want to create art are going to do it regardless, and we're always going to have that. Um, my concerns are, and I think it's a great tool. I mean, I enjoy working with it.
Yeah.
I think I have concerns for my kids. I'm mainly worried
Uh-huh.
about why why would my kids want to have tough relationships with people if they could have just like a nice AI being their friend? So this is just like my concern is more existential, not like for my job,
Uh-huh.
but for
Mhm.
future generations.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but I don't think AI is coming for our jobs. Just like with anything, it's a tool, and you just have to learn how to use
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
Um, yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about Framer? I know that you're using Webflow. Have you checked out Framer?
I've only ever seen what people are saying on Twitter about it. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's so buttery soft, like it's super quick," and
There's a lot of buzz in
it
Twitter
has
right now.
there is, and
Yeah.
everyone's talking about how like the learning curve is not as steep as Webflow and all sorts of things. But I don't know. I'm a Webflow girl for now, but I'll probably check it out and see what comes out of that. But I'm
Yeah.
team Webflow for
Yeah.
now.
I feel like I've been like that for a while. Like I felt like, I wouldn't say religious, but I feel like I will not cheat on the Webflow team. But now I'm kind of like, oh, let me check. Maybe. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, let's see what's
I'm
on the other
open.
side.
I'm open. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think there's merit in just sort of knowing what's out there as well and what your options are. So there's no harm in actually just seeing what's going on there.
Yeah. Cool. So I would love to hear your opinion. So I've shared with you, I think we've talked about this, or maybe I shared it in the team messages, our idea about doing kind of like studio experience group coaching for students where we are going to bring in a client and we're going to guide them on working on a real project. So it's actually shaping up, and we have a
Oh,
potential
really?
client, a really cool potential client to do that with. But I'm not sure how to do this, and I would love to hear your thoughts about this. So my initial thought
Hmm.
was to bring in kind of like a group of like 20 to 40 people and have each of them working on their own design, kind of doing kind of like a design competition, which is great. And I think they will all benefit. It might be a little bit overwhelming for a client to receive 20 to 40 different designs and then having to either give feedback on
Mhm.
them. It makes them difficult to kind of like commit to a specific route. Um, so that's one. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm concerned about. Like if we have like what is a good group size for this? The other alternative, which I'm thinking about, is maybe we just create kind of like a group as if we had a kind of like a real studio, just like a group of five, and we manage the project as art directors, but really as if we were working with a client, just doing like one or two directions and working with them. Um, but then it's really limited if we're just helping like five people at a time. That's not really scalable. We have like already,
Mhm.
by the way, like 500 people, over 500 people wait list to be part of this. So I'm just like, how can we help them? So I'm thinking about this right now about the trade-offs of a smaller group versus a bigger group. And you've been a coach and mentor on our community. So what's your take on how we can help
Um,
people best experience this?
okay, so I definitely see how you would be thinking about this a lot more. Because the thing definitely is to ensure that we help everyone out. But realistically, I think that the approach to have a smaller group to start with could be more beneficial for the students and for the clients. And it's definitely less overwhelming. So, given that there are quite a number of students who have already shown interest, maybe we could do it on a per merit basis, maybe. So, go through their portfolio, look at the work that they're currently working on with in whatever course they're in, and then we can maybe see what the quality of the output of the work is, how well they embrace feedback, how excited they are to work on the project and that sort of thing. And then use that as sort of like a metric system to be like, okay, based off of um, this set of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be good for this client, and then take it from there. I think
Yeah.
also depending on the nature of the client, you could then have because not all clients are equal in terms of what they do in the industry that they operate in. So you could get students who maybe are more inclined towards that kind of industry or who are working on projects that have something to do with what the client does. And then they could also have like a first pick basis or something like that.
Yeah. I'm My gut feeling also tends there. My concerns is that we're in a way just opening up basically an agency and just being able to do one project at a time with a few interns in a way. And I'm concerned that maybe it's either not scalable or not, yeah, not really something that we can do as if we, unless we want to build an agency, um, which is currently, trying to build an educational company. But Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think
Yeah.
scaling it will definitely be on the trickier side for sure because we have a lot of students. So I don't know,
Yeah. It's always a
maybe
trade-off.
if yeah, once in a while thing with incentive just to get the students to get more experience, like that'll be great. But yeah, scaling it is a bit of a tough challenge for sure.
Yeah. All right. I'll bring it up in tomorrow's meeting with the whole team, and we'll see if there'll be interesting ideas. But I'm really excited
Hmm.
because we have a
It
client,
is exciting.
and it was so random because just when we decided that we want to do this initiative, then a huge YouTube channel with like tens of millions of subscribers reached out, and I was like, hey, we want to design our, our website. And I was like, have I got the program right for you? So it felt like it happened right on time, and it's really cool. It's a really cool project. So I really want to help them do it. I just need to find the right, yeah, the right framework structure to do it.
Yeah, but no, it's super cool. It's super, super cool. And I'm just thinking about it, like had I gone like down this route like when I was learning, that would have been so fun and exciting to be like, what? Like, not only am I learning and like I'm getting like great support and everything, like, I also get to get like I also get a chance to get like real time experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Because I was
cool.
thinking, the way that I came to this is kind of like I was thinking, what is required from somebody to become a good designer? So obviously, it's you got to learn. Obviously, you got to practice, but you can't just do it. If all you do is self-initiated project, it's great, but you're missing out on a really important component of being a designer, which is collaborating with a client. So you have to really work with the clients and get feedback and iterations and um, however, that leads to so now we start helping people find clients, which is good. I mean,
Mhm.
people want us to help, but I don't want to be into teaching marketing. I want to help people become good designers. There's a lot of other
Mhm.
people who will teach them marketing, and so this is kind of like my solution is, hey, we're getting leads for projects anyway, just because we're big. Maybe we'll give these leads into our community or students, and then it can be kind of like a win-win. That's how I was
Yeah,
thinking about this.
and I think it's great. It's such a cool idea. Such
I'm
a cool
excited about
idea.
this. Yeah. We'll have to see how we make it profitable, but
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
excited about
I guess
this.
it is business after all, but
Yeah, exactly.
I know
Exactly.
it's really exciting. I wish I had this honestly because my first client experience was something else. Like I ended up getting referred to this client through one of my family members who was like, "Hey, just give her a shot. Like she's learning this thing, and who knows, she may surprise you." So they approached me and they just wanted like corporate collateral done, right? So like company profile, letterhead logo, things like that. And I was like, yeah, yeah, sure. Like I'll work on it for you. So I didn't even know that I had to have a contract in place. Like I didn't know what process was like. I just kind of dove in and I was like, you know what, this is it, we're doing it. And they didn't question anything at all. They're like, oh, okay. So just let us know when it's done. So I worked on all the material that they wanted and we went through revisions and everything. And then they're like, oh, okay, so how much is this gonna cost? I kid you not,
After
for
the
the entire
fact.
package. Yeah. I was like, oh, by the way, they're actually paying me for this crazy concept. And on top of that, I charged them 25 United States dollars for
Oh my
everything.
God.
And I was
Oh my
shaking. I
God.
was shaking. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so much money. Like, what are they gonna say? Like, what's
Did
happening
they
with
say
this?
okay?
Yeah, they just said okay. Obviously, because we're like, oh, okay, like that's it. Oh, that's fine. But what I really appreciate from that experience is that like I really poured my heart and soul into this work because I was like, oh, this is my first time doing this. I don't know much, so I'm just gonna make sure I do a good job. And they were so gracious and so kind-hearted people that I worked with that they came back to me with like feedback. They're like, hey, so this is how we went about this, and this is what happened, but I just like, we just wanted to have a chat with you just to let you know how we usually go about these kinds of things with other designers that we've worked with. So that's when they were like, sort of like, I was having a revelation in that conversation because I was like, wait, what? I'm supposed to do that, and then what? And then you have to, and oh, I didn't know that. I was just doing this because I really enjoy it. So when you even like brought up the whole issue of like my invoice and everything, I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, how do I even go about that? Like, where do I create an invoice? Like, what do I put on it? So I really, really, really value like, and I'm really excited that Flux is potentially going to be doing something like this because it really goes a long way in really understanding how the real world works.
Thank you for sharing this story. And I have to say, it sounds so similar to my first story. And I don't know necessarily that you want to help people avoid this experience because this experience is very important. I think most people, I mean, that I know have started out by getting their first opportunity from somebody in their personal network, like a family or something like that, because these are the only people who trust them, right? And that makes sense. And then you do it and you learn. But I think today people on Twitter and the internet, they see all of these other successful designers with 5 tips on how to get to $100,000 a year in 6 months and stuff like that. And they imagine that they can just somehow skip a lot of steps and just have their first project with thousands of dollars and stuff like that. But it's the way that you learn is actually doing the $25 project. And then they're saying, okay. And that's like, okay, I guess it's worth $25, if not more, because they said yes pretty easily. They didn't even negotiate. So maybe I'll try
Yeah,
50 next time, right? So, and this is how it
exactly.
works.
Right.
And this is how it works. Um, so yeah, of course you want to learn and you want to move faster and you want to have guidance specifically. And I think the important thing is the guidance in terms of making sure that the work is of high quality. Like how can you
Mhm.
provide high quality work? Because at the end of the day, it's no amount of negotiation skill is going to help you if your portfolio sucks, right? Or if you don't know how to deliver, or even if you don't know how to listen to feedback, I think. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway, that was
Yeah.
my rant, but
I mean, there are definitely a lot of moving parts, and I hear you when you say that. I think that experience is necessary for you to figure out how to navigate the next steps. But there's no harm in also being a little bit more prepared for what you could potentially get out of it.
what I think is really important is, again, having a community. So I personally was lucky
Mhm.
to have that locally here, just with people around me, um, to kind of like talk to them. Hey, the client offered me this. What do you say? Is this enough? How do we send invoice? Ask all these questions. Have people where you can ask the questions. If you're all alone, then it's difficult, right? Because you're only with the thoughts in your head. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm also hoping that this is the space that we're creating is for people to not feel as if they're doing it on their own, right? They have people to who've been there before who can answer the questions and support them. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, community definitely goes a long way. Because like I was saying, my experience was very isolated. So I had to figure it out by myself. I had no one to ask, like, how do you charge? Like, how much is this worth? No idea. I was just kind of going with what I had in my head for sure.
So for
But I
you,
guess with
no, I was going to say for you, social media really provided as an online community where it helped you get exposure. I think I found you on, I don't know if Twitter or Instagram, but where I stumbled on your work. And then I was like, hey, Come mentor our
Yeah,
students.
which is super cool, and I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying it. Social media has definitely played a big role in this. What is really nice about the time that we're living in, or the advent of tech, is that everyone is online. So regardless of like geographical location, we're all reading the same tweets. We're all complaining about the same AI. Like,
Yeah.
we're all seeing the same Instagram reels. So it's a really good platform to just make sure that you build with intention, and you build around online community and everything like that. So it's really such an energy boost for me, a mental boost as well. And just knowing that there are designers that I connect with who come from, different backgrounds, and we all speak the same language and that sort of thing. So it really, 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 really made a difference for me. But it took time because I had to start building from scratch, because I had an online persona already that people knew me by, which was attached to my previous job and things that I spoke about, which are regular people things like football and politics here and there. And, you know, this is my favorite food, just regular conversation. But I had to build credibility and trust because there's no way that I could come from that position and start talking about design. Everyone's just going to be like, wait, like, who are you? And what design thing are you talking about? From where? So I actually did something pretty drastic. Uh, when I was talking about taking down all of my posts, that is the day that I woke up and I Googled, how do I delete all my tweets at once? And that's what I did. And then I started sort of, like just sharing my experiences, like in my self-learning journey, things that I've learned trying to navigate the business of design, just posting threads here and there, getting a little bit more brave to put my work out there. And slowly but surely, in 6 months, in a year, I could talk about design, and someone was actually listening and could trust me enough to be like, hey, the information that she's putting across actually makes sense. So yeah, social
So
media
just
and
to
just,
keep tabs, you're active on Twitter, on LinkedIn, you've
yes.
mentioned, and Instagram. Is that all, or is this something else? Dribble,
The
Behance.
I have a Behance, but it is in dear need of an update. I haven't updated it since I got my website, which I also need to update. But that's a designer's
Yeah.
problem. We take time to update things, but I'll get to it. But
No,
there's
but
are
is it
my three
not
main.
overwhelming to manage all of these platforms and communications? Do you not struggle with, oh, I
Not
have to post every day. I have to.
Not exactly. So I do go through periods, especially now where I'm feeling like I definitely need to post something because I haven't in a while. But I really believe in quality over quantity, and I'm not going to just post something for the sake of posting it. I want for it to really retain its value, and for it to be something that I'm proud to have out there online, because it's also a full extension of who I am. So if it takes a little bit longer for that to happen, then that's perfectly fine. There's no rush at
So
all
you don't
to
have
get
like
any.
a schedule. Oh, I have to post every Monday,
I
or
don't
you do.
think that I could even keep up with it if I did, because I am a solopreneur, so I wear many hats. I am social media manager, I am accountant, I am strategist, I am personal assistant, all in one. So, if I were to have a content calendar, I feel like it would not be something that I'll be able to honor to, just because of how up and down being a solopreneur is. But even within that, I don't think that I would authentically be posting, given that my line of work and the things that I do take a lot of time, like I was explaining with the research. So I wouldn't be able to roll out content that quickly, anyways. But when I do, I do hope that it's something special that people can resonate with. But it just takes me a little bit longer to do it.
Do you care about the metrics, like how many likes, how many followers, that kind of stuff? Not
Not
really.
really. I
That's
wouldn't say
good.
I do.
That's good. Yeah.
I think that there's something quite nice about the numbers. Just because we are human beings. So just, seeing that validation, like, oh, someone liked my work or someone has said something nice about what I've done, it really, really does have an effect on your mood and your person, just like how something negative as well is gonna have you feeling a little bit low and down. But what I've come to appreciate more is the sense of community around me. So just daily interactions that I have with designers, little conversations that we have, fun that we have on my Instagram stories. If I just want to goof around, if I want to be like, hey, this is what's happening today, or I'm having a dance party at my desk and someone responds to that and it's like, oh, I'm having one. I'm like, oh, cool. What are you listening to? Those things go a long way for me as opposed to the numbers.
Yeah.
So it is nice to see growth in that way, to be like, oh, like a lot more people resonate with what I'm doing. But I think I really value the more intrinsic things, to be like, okay, so can we relate? Like, can we have a conversation? Do you feel free actually DMing me and asking me questions around design? Do I come across as someone you can speak to who can be your design friend? Those things matter more to me.
Yep. Good. I feel I was there too when I started. When I was just doing content for fun, it was mainly this, and then kind of became work. And then it's just like, oh my God, the numbers are up, the numbers are down. I'm not posting enough. And now it's, I guess, like any hobby that turns into work, it becomes kind of like, nah, got to take care of that. All right.
Yeah.
So the
But I
podcast
will
is actually
say,
me trying to go back into doing stuff that's fun versus doing stuff that maybe I need to be doing to hit certain metrics.
mhm,
Yeah, so this is
yeah.
my approach of trying to bring back the fun.
And we appreciate you bringing back the fun. But I'll say like, like I do still feel it sometimes, like when I haven't put something out online for a while, which is currently the state that I'm in right now, you feel like you've lost momentum. You're like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, like, and you get like a certain like just not a lot, but like a little bit of anxiety where you're like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen the next time I post? And has the algorithm changed? And like, all sorts of things. But in that as well, like I practice self-praise. I'm like, you know what? Like, it's fine. Whatever happens is gonna happen. I think as long as you're just genuinely like posting work that inspires you and things that you enjoy seeing, then it's fine.
yeah. It's got to be fun. Otherwise, it's not sustainable, I think. Are you reading books for fun, not for research?
Yes, I am reading books. I
What are you
am
reading?
currently reading Building a Story Brand by Donald
Mhm.
Miller. I've been
That's
trying to
good.
read it for some reading that, but I'm also reading some African fiction. And I am waiting for this book called Business Model Generation. I forget who
Is
wrote
this
it, but
the rectangular book with
yeah, that
all kinds
one.
of, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
I
the
think I,
sketchy cover.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I had it. I think I've read it like a few years ago. I actually had
Mhm.
a physical copy of that book. Because now I read mostly on Kindle, but I had a physical copy, and
I can't
yeah,
do Kindle. I'm old school.
it's
I'm young, but I'm old.
it's just for me, it's just so much easier and practical. I'm really because I had this fantasy for years to have like in my house like this wall of bookshelf with all the books because I read a lot because I like it, and imagine this having this reading book with the little letter, to get to the books on the top. But then I
Oh
started
yeah,
reading on
yeah.
Kindle, and now I don't buy physical books anymore. And it's just like when I realized the fantasy is dead, I actually gave away my whole library. I basically
Mhm.
put up a post on Instagram like, "Hey, if you want books, come to my house and take all of my books," which I had a lot. And I think I had that
Uh-huh.
book as well, and people just in 2 hours, my whole library was gone.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So do you have like aspirations of like building it back up again, or you're like, no,
I think
my
I
Kindle's fine.
realized this. Yeah, it's I enjoy reading on the Kindle. That's the problem. I still want the fantasy of
Uh-huh.
having the library, but I'm like, if I have a library, it's just to impress people. It's not,
Ah, got
I
it.
guess it's not practical. It's actually better if I just, it's
Mhm.
lighter. It's like I have the dictionary inside. It syncs with my phone if I want to keep reading elsewhere. It's just like I can read a very
It's
heavy book
work.
with just one hand. I mean, there's so many, I can read in the dark. There's so many benefits. It's just like going back to books, like
Yeah,
physical books. Yeah.
yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. So when I was in my first year of university, because you're trying to save all the money that you can save, right? Because you're getting an allowance from
Yeah.
parents. So they gave me textbook money, money that I was supposed to go and buy actual textbooks. But I was like, hey, what are my options? They're like, no, you can definitely just get like ebooks, they're so much cheaper. They were a quarter of the price of an actual textbook. And my textbooks were thick, they were huge. So I was like, oh, that sounds like a good deal. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna save some money. I'll have a little bit of money to do other things and all sorts of things. So first night having to do my assignment, and I have these ebooks on my computer loaded as PDFs. I went back the
No,
next
but you
day.
can't
I
read.
went,
You can't read on the computer. That's not. You can't read on
yeah,
the computer.
yeah.
But the
So
actual
I
Kindle
get,
is good. It's just like it looks like
yeah,
paper and it's got like a decent font and no, but on the computer it's just like yeah.
yeah, yeah. But ever since then, I have read on a Kindle, and I don't know. I just need a flip over. I need a,
Yeah.
like you get your book and then you sort of
The bookmark, yeah, the bookmark thing.
yeah, and then you just
Yeah.
mark where you are. Like it just feels better for me. So I
Yeah.
guess I'm very old in that sense, yeah.
Got it.
Do you have any recommendations for me, books that you think I should try out?
Books oh my God, I mean there's so many. Right now, so I'm always reading two things. I read kind of like nonfiction. I read when I ride my bicycle, I listen to audiobooks. And now I
Hmm.
got really hard into Nassim Taleb. Have you heard of him? Black
No, I
Swan,
haven't.
Fooled by Randomness. Okay, so this guy was
Oh,
he was a trader and he like investor or trader, yeah, and he's talking about the effects of randomness in life or like random events that have outsized proportions. Anyway, so I read now a book called Skin in the Game, and now I'm reading a book called Fooled by Randomness. Basically, the thesis is that the effect of randomness is much larger than people would like to tell stories about why things happen. And, you know, it's really interesting, really, really interesting. So this is kind of like, this is a nonfiction. I also read fiction is kind of just like before I go to bed and in my lunch break, if I eat alone, I would read fiction. So now I'm reading Franz Kafka, which is kind of like a 19th century, 20th century. It's just like a Jewish dude, kind of weird. So I'm reading a book called Metamorphosis, something like this. It's about a guy who wakes up one day to find out he turned into a cockroach and kind of like the way that his family treats
what?
him. It's very weird. It's just like, so his family locks him in the room and but he's still the same person and he has, his feelings and, uh, he's kind of like feeling betrayed by them not taking care of him. And just like, anyway, it's weird. Yeah,
That is very weird, but
it's very weird.
interesting.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah,
Um,
you imagine what happens in these authors' minds sometimes, actually.
yeah, it's about,
They
I
take it
think,
very.
yeah, I think it's like a metaphor. It's not really about the cockroach effect. It's just because he was,
Mhm,
the provider for his family. And now because of his condition, he can't work and they have to, and they're struggling. So he feels guilt
mhm.
about what happened to his family, although it's not his fault. And it's just like about him tripping about with guilt and anger and stuff like that, and his thoughts. I think the condition is just kind of like an absurd position just to put context into the story of how he feels. But yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway,
No, it sounds cool. I'm gonna
yeah.
go to my
I don't know. I'm in the
local
middle.
books.
I'm in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look for the hard copy version because that's what
Yeah,
I can
look
do.
for it. I mean, he is the most famous book that he wrote is called The Trial. I think he is very famous for that book. Um, so that's like the most likely the book, I don't know, that you hear people talk about. But this is the second book, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. No, I'll definitely check it out for sure.
Cool, Fungi. Thank you so much for joining me for our virtual coffee lunch break. It was so fun to chat.
It was really great chatting with you too.
Thank you so
Super fun.
much. And is there any place that you want to tell people to? I mean, we'll put all of your social links in the description and stuff like that, but is there like something that you want to leave people with or where they should talk to you or something like that
On social. It's
on
fine.
social? Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Send a DM,
Twitter,
say hi, be a friend.
please do. My DMs are open for everyone.
All right.
For as long
Fantastic.
as you're talking.
Talk to you soon, and I will see you on our all hands meeting tomorrow.